This is the SEC Insider Hit, brought to you by Capital Preservation Services, the tax planning team that helps business owners earn more and keep more.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Man, good morning. Good morning, good morning. Welcome into the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. We're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app. You can watch the show on YouTube. Search Out of Bounds Sports, also on Facebook. Live in the Bank Plus studio, the SEC Insider Hit this morning is brought to you by Ace Bolt and Screw, powered by DeWalt Tools. 4 locations: Atlanta, Tupelo, their new location, Gluckstadt, Madison County, and downtown Jackson. Ace Bolt and Screw, powered by DeWalt Tools. acebolt.net. We want to welcome in Texas Longhorns insider Brian Davis, Austin American Statesman, and Hook'em.com. Brian joins us on the Modelo guest line. We were talking Steve Sarkisian earlier, and the fact that he is the new head coach for the Longhorns and, of course, has made a couple of stops in Tuscaloosa. Brian, good morning. Welcome in.
Morning. How are you?
Man, we're doing well. Before I dive into this really good article that you wrote a while back when Sark was hired, in the article you talk about how Tom Herman, the former coach at Texas, used to set things up to where some players got prime rib and other players got burnt hot dogs and soggy pancakes. Walk me through that.
Exactly. Well, basically, one of the things that when Tom Herman got here after Charlie Strong was that there was a very strong belief that there needed to be a culture shock, right? Because at that time, a lot of the knock on Texas was that it was a country club atmosphere, and everybody comes here and nobody does any work. And so one of the things that Tom decided to do was reward players who practiced well and did what was required and, did all things at a what he called a championship level. Well, they got better food than those who didn't, and so there was filet mignon and salmon and all these wonderful things that, T-bone steak and blah, 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 blah. And those who weren't in the quote-unquote champions group got burnt hot dogs, soggy pancakes, watery eggs, crappy breakfast. And what was so funny about it is that it actually kind of backfired on him because players would just say, whatever, coach, and they'd go down to Chick-fil-A, right, in between classes. So, and then a lot of people internally felt, you just don't mess with their food, right? You can do a lot of things to athletes, but you don't mess with their food. And needless to say, it caused quite a stir at the time.
Tom Herman's record wasn't bad. So he was close to turning the corner, I guess just not quite there, and didn't do it in the amount of time that evidently whoever, the Board of Regents or the new AD from TCU wanted?
Well, I would agree with that. I mean, it's, when Tom got here, the Longhorns had just gone through 3 straight losing seasons. Well, Tom had 4 straight winning seasons, but they were all of the, 7-5 and 8-4 type of variety. The one standout being the year in 2018. But that was the real issue, is that to get to the Sugar Bowl and to get to the Big 12 championship game and to win the Sugar Bowl, as great as that was, the very next year in 2019, to not make the Big 12 championship game, and then the following year, in the pandemic year, with a senior quarterback, who just got drafted in the 6th round, who statistically is one of the best quarterbacks in Texas history, you couldn't even get to the title game. Then a lot of people just felt, listen, coach, it's probably not going to work for you here, and that's why a change was made.
Brian Davis, Hook'em.com, wrote a super piece on Steve Sarkisian, the new coach. I actually think he'll do well there after, the last few years of the Mac Brown deal. Charlie Strong didn't work out, and as Brian just shared with us, Tom Herman may have been close, but it just didn't happen the way they wanted it. Well, speaking of Brian Davis, Longhorns insider, how much did Oklahoma's success and somewhat seamless transition between Bob Stoops and Lincoln Riley put pressure on Texas to make a move on Tom Herman, even though he was winning?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that there's something to that. You know, people see, you know, your biggest rival, and they're just steamrolling along. And a lot of folks here think that that there's no excuse why Texas shouldn't be in that conversation. And quite frankly, I would agree with that. I mean, I think there is zero reason why the University of Texas shouldn't at least be in the conversation of making it a championship game. I mean, we're not. I mean, think about that. I mean, we're not even talking about winning the league. We're just saying, can you get to the title, right? And in a 10-team league where the bottom half is really not at a championship level of being competitive, we're talking 5 teams, best of the 2 of the top 5 teams. I mean, I even I'm like, listen, that's ridiculous. And so, yeah, so that no question that Oklahoma's success plays a part in how Texas does its decision making, no doubt.
And in your piece, you talk about how, you know, Sark's approach and how to me, this isn't a rebuild. Now, there are some things that need to be tweaked and upgraded, whether it's positions and relationships with Texas high school football coaches, which you head on. But wouldn't you agree that this is far from a rebuild, even though they need to improve some things?
Well, I mean, I would say that they definitely need to get some more talent, for sure. They have enough talent to be competitive, but, you know, that's not good enough. You need more talent to have a championship level pedigree. So the recruiting needs to get a little bit better, and their development, quite frankly, of those players needs to get better. You know, they just had 5 players drafted. You know, and a lot of people here were stunned at that because they didn't think it'd be that many, quite frankly. And so they need to get good players. They need to coach them up. That was one of the big things. And one of the issues that got Tom, that kind of hastened his exit, is that Tom's had a real big belief in a player rotation. You know, rotating the running backs, rotating the receivers. Well, if you watch Texas football at all, you saw that Bijan Robinson was far and away the best running back of the 3. I mean, it's not even close, right? Well, he was the 3rd guy in, you know, and it's like, does this guy not even see who's on his own team, right? I mean, that was a big feeling of that. So, and then for Steve Sarkisian to come in and say, look, we are only going to play the best players. I don't really believe in this rotation. I don't care what receiver position you play. We're going to play the top 3 receivers at all times. I mean, that's music to these people's ears right now because that's what they want to hear. Why is Texas not putting the best players on the best 11 on the field at all times? That, without a doubt, that's what really angered a lot of people about Tom Herman's tenure here.
Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. We're visiting with Brian Davis, Longhorns insider, Austin American Statesman, and Hook'em.com. He joins us on the Modelo guest line talking Sark and the Horns. And I think the big question is, you know, when can they get back, or not get back, when will they go to the college football playoff? Because I think that's what this program wants. And Oklahoma has won at a more consistent level the last, well, really 50 years, but definitely the last 20. So do you know, I'm sure you know these numbers. Herman signed 132 4- and 5-star players, and only 20 were drafted, which tells me that they didn't have the development, maybe / culture, strength and conditioning piece going the right way. Brian, your thoughts?
I mean, well, to be fair, those numbers are probably skewed because, I mean, this was really only the first year that Herman's signed players were really draft eligible. At least that's what we feel here. I mean, a lot of the players before this year were all signed under Charlie, and so we'll be able to grade Tom's draftable numbers in the next 2 or 3 years to come. But you know, I just feel like that talking about the CFP is so far removed from the reality of where Texas is right now. I mean, when I'm on the radio here and in my stories and stuff, I make it very clear that Texas needs to focus on winning the Big 12 and beating Oklahoma on a consistent basis, and hell, beating Iowa State. Beating Iowa State is a problem now, right? Do you realize that this program with TCU, who is it? TCU, Iowa State, and Oklahoma, they're 0-6 the last 2 years. TCU, Iowa State, and Oklahoma. That's terrible.
That's awful.
Terrible. That's awful. And so, I just sort of feel like this program, like I said, this program should not be talking about the CFP. This program needs to talk about, beating TCU, beating Iowa State, getting to Arlington and winning in Arlington.
Oh, man. Okay. Well, Sark made a great hire, defensive coordinator. Tell me about the first – where are we? Brian, tell me about the first 90 days of Sark on the job.
Well, I think the staff that's been assembled is very strong. I think it's a very, very strong staff. You mentioned defensive coordinator Pete Kwiatkowski from Wall, who has a really solid track record. I like him a lot. I think that the people that he's pulled from Alabama, including Banks, Flood, I think these are going to be good hires. We're never going to get to talk to them because Sarkisian is going with the Nick Saban model of assistants are off limits, which is a first.
Lane does the same thing here with Ole Miss.
Yeah, I mean it's lame is what it is, And
it's silly, but I get it. Yeah,
it's stupid, but so I like recruiting is off to a pretty good start. There's no question, and I think that he's done a good job of targeting specific needs in the portal. I'm very pro portal for the players, but I'm very anti portal for the coaches. I think that players are going to be deeply, deeply disappointed in the big picture of what they do or don't find.
Oh, I agree.
Always greener. Grass is not always greener. So, first 90-day report card, spring went good. No real major injuries other than Jake Smith's with a broken foot, but he'll be back for the fall, so no big deal there. I think the real program right now is settling on a quarterback to replace Sam Ellinger.
Who do you think it'll be?
Casey Thompson or Hudson Card are your top two choices, and both have pros and cons. The con being that neither one of them have game experience, and so they're kind of starting from scratch from that standpoint.
Okay, let's go back to the culture piece and the country club deal. We're visiting with Brian Davis, Hookem.com, super article a couple months ago on Sark getting hired. He sat down with him at the, Fountain Blue in Miami a day before the national title game, and also American Statesman. He joins us on the Modelo guest line. We've been talking about this for years because we talk college football year-round, so we're heavy SEC, and then the other big programs, right? Texas, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Southern Cal if they're good, Clemson, and so on. What can you put your finger on it? I mean, why is it considered a soft program? What Bama is a blue-collar program. Ohio State is a blue-collar program. I consider some other programs that have flashed brilliance at times, Miami, Texas, Southern Cal, to be more, soft country club, all about the bright lights and so on. How would you describe if it is a country club type program, and what was wrong with the culture at the end under Mac and under Charlie Strong and possibly Tom Herman, Brian?
Well, we don't have enough time in your show to go into all of it, but the Reader's Digest version is that at the end, Mac let a lot of things go that he probably shouldn't have, and that was one thing. Charlie wanted to be their friend more than their head coach.
Joe Moorhead. Okay, got it.
Right. I mean, the head coach has to be the bad guy. I'm sorry. The head coach is the bad guy, and the assistant coaches are the good cops. right? That's how it works.
Okay.
So that didn't go so well. Tom was the bad cop, and the problem is that after 5-6 years of cuddly good cop from the head coach, that was a shock to the system, and enough players had turned over that you didn't have anyone left from the glory days of the aughts, right? So that's an issue there. So I do think one of the best things about the Tom Herman experience was that he did give a shock to the system, so to speak, and that the players that were here, realized, hey, listen, y'all suck. This program sucks. It's not very good. 7-5 is not very good, people.
No.
And that message
especially in
was
that
driven
league.
home.
Good hell.
Yeah, exactly. That message was driven home loud and clear. 7-6, I should say. They were 7-6 in 2017, and the message was, this is not good enough. And so that's where Texas is. I really don't think you could label them as a soft program right now. They just need to get better, right? They just need to get more players, find more talent, coach them up, and get better. Because I really do believe that I believe in the recruiting services as a whole, right? On the recruiting industry as a whole generally gets it right.
Sure.
I mean, yes, they will miss on some every now and again, but generally speaking, they get it right. And based on stars and rankings and all that, Texas has plenty of players. They have plenty of players. They just need to be coached up and coached in the right way, and coached up just as good as Oklahoma does theirs. And so that to me is the real issue going forward.
Yeah, to me, Brian Davis, Longhorns insider on the Modelo guest line, to me, Oklahoma is more blue collar, and Texas is definitely more, kind of country club, trust fund baby. But you're right. I mean, they can win. They have everything they need to win, and I think Sark is going to work here. How bad I know I kind of asked this earlier, but how much has Oklahoma's success driven the fan base crazy?
I mean, no more than Alabama's success drives Auburn crazy, or something like that. I mean, I think Texas fans are far more worried about what's going on in their own shop
Gotcha.
than they are what's going on in Oklahoma.
What about Jimbo? Texas will always have the advantage when push comes to shove over Oklahoma and A&M. But now I guess you're looking at kind of Bama will go over there too, and others. Everybody goes into Texas. What do you expect to shake out between the Sark and Jimbo recruiting battles, Brian?
There's a really strong belief here that there's enough players for everybody. And, yes, there's going to be some one-on-one battles, but the general perception here is that, you're not just battling Oklahoma, you're battling LSU. Oklahoma State sneaks in and scoops up, a lot of good diamonds in the rough type of players. I mean, from Texas's standpoint, recruiting-wise, yeah, A&M is there, but people just don't. There's not. I mean, if you grew up following Texas, you're just not worried about A&M because A&M's going to do what they do, and that's finish third or fourth in their conference, whatever conference that is, and they're going to make a lot of noise, but ultimately do nothing, and that's just kind of what A&M is, and here in Austin. College Station is about an hour and a half away, but it might as well be on another planet. Once A&M went to the SEC, A&M doesn't get a lot of media coverage here anymore now.
Really?
Outside of East Texas and down to Houston is really the bulk of the media coverage. They get some in Dallas, but not near as much as the Big 12 does. I would genuinely believe that if you hooked most A&M fans up to a lie detector test, they'll tell you that the move to the SEC has just been okay. It's been good, but it has not been as great as they thought it would be.
Yeah. No, that's another program that I don't understand why they've underachieved for 50 years, considering their resources and so on. But I think Jimbo Fisher's overrated in the first place. So,
don't tell them that. I'm certainly not going to say that because the man has a national championship ring. And I'm not going to sit there and say anything about him being overrated. I just think that I just think A&M has a very, very tough road to hoe in the division that they're in.
No doubt.
And it's always going to be an uphill battle against Alabama and LSU.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. We have a huge Alabama and LSU alumni base here in the Jackson Metro, and they're both one's 2.5 hours away and the other one's 2 hours away. So the two monsters are on the left and the right of Starkville and Oxford, and it's a bad deal most of the time. Brian, super piece. Enjoyed reading your piece on One-on-One with Steve Sarkisian on Hookem.com. We appreciate your time today. I'd like to do this one more time before we get the season kicked off, because I've got some more that I'd like to hit on as far as the Longhorns and maybe even a little bit more on the Aggies, even though they're not in the same conference anymore. And by the way, this is big Dak Prescott country too, Brian. So we're all pulling for Dak to come back and hopefully have.
Well, he just got his contract, so we can stop arguing about that now. And, of course, now the defense is so bad. Jerry wasted the whole draft on the defense, so now we'll see if anybody can tackle worth a darn up there.
No doubt, no doubt. Brian, have a great week, man. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Brian Davis, Longhorns Insider, Hookem.com, Austin American-Statesman, and he joined us on the Modelo guest line. Guess who has Modelo? Well, your local grocery stores have Modelo, like Corner Market, the official grocery store of the Out of Bounds Show, Corner Market in Belhaven, Corner Market in Fondren, and Corner Market Northside Drive. Great meat selection, fresh produce, and, of course, great beer selection. But Mudbugs also has Modelo on draft, which makes them even more awesome than they already are. Mudbugs will open this afternoon through Sunday, and they will be slinging the best crawfish in the state of Mississippi. 2 locations in Rankin County, Mudbugs at the Reservoir and Mudbugs in Brandon. And, yes, they have Modelo on draft. Modelo and crawfish from Mudbugs, well, that is a grand slam. The show is also brought to you by Havana Smoke Shop. And one of the Havana Smoke Shop locations is about a quarter mile from Mudbugs, right across from Shaggy's at the Reservoir, and then I-55 North. If you're looking for some really quality premium cigars, Havana Smoke Shop, and they do a great job. I-55 North Frontage Road and across from Shaggy's at the Reservoir. Blake, you told me Live Oaks Golf Course is closed, but I bet Roosevelt's is open, correct? All right. Roosevelt's is open for lunch at Live Oaks. You can smash some wings, Philly cheesesteak sandwich, or a delicious cheeseburger and pair it with an ice-cold Coors Light. Roosevelt's at Live Oaks for lunch. That's a beautiful thing. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. Welcome in. Good morning on a Wednesday. ESPN 105.9 The Zone. We're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app.